Hi guys, how's it going? I wanted to hop on and share a couple of hot tips and tricks on one of my favorite subjects, foiling. We're going to talk a little bit about stitches, the different stitches that we have and what they create, and then we're also going to talk about lines of placement. So we talk about 4 different types of stitches in Ulta Academy. Our first stitch is a regular stitch, which is going to give you just a natural dimension. I like to say highs and lows in the contrast. We also have a slice. A slice is going to give you some more of like a heavy, more solid appearance in the hair color. Then we have the slice and skip. A lot of people would say that it looks chunky. I like to elevate the language a little bit, and I like to use the word ribbons of color. Jot that down. And then we also have micro stitch. So micro stitch is also known as a baby light. So that's going to give you really natural, subtle looking dimension. So I'm going to show you what these look like in the hair. So I've parted my mannequin off, and I'm going to use a piece of paper to really show you what this looks like. So I'm going to take my comb here. I have a highlighting comb, and I'm going to take my subsection, and I'm going to do what we call a regular stitch. Now you can go bounce the end of your comb up and down to create your stitch, or you can make little small circles. Doesn't matter, whatever you're more comfortable with. So I'm going to go in and I'm just going to go up and down, and this is going to be my regular stitch, the one for natural dimension. And I like to show this in my class. I like to show what it's going to look like. So you can see that there's highs and lows in the hair. It's going to give you natural dimension. So this is called our regular stitch. Now I'm going to show you our slice, which is going to be more of a heavy veil of color. So I'm going to take a slice all the way across the top of the section, place my piece of paper, and you see how that it's a lot more hair. It covers a lot more area, so it's going to be more of a heavy look. Then we have the slice and skip, which, like I said, most of my students would call it chunky, but I like to use the word ribbons. And believe it or not, this is something that's really popular right now. It's coming back. So I like to take a section, drop a section, take a section, drop a section, take a section. So then this is what it looks like. So you can definitely see it's going to give it way more contrast. And then last but not least, we have our baby lights. So I'm going to take my small subsection, and then I'm going to go real close to the root here, and I'm going to go up and down pretty quickly just to create smaller dimension, which is going to be more like your baby light. And there it is, a little bit more natural looking. All right, so now let's talk about lines of placement. So there are 4 different lines of placement as well. Our first one is vertical. So vertical means you placing your foils up and down vertically, as if I were to part the hair and my foil would sit up and down just like this on this hairline. So what this will do is it will reduce the look of any kind of weight. Okay, so really it's really good to use during a corrective service or to get rid of lines of demarcation. It's really great for that. So vertical foils are tricky, so it's definitely something that you may want to practice, but it's a really great tool to have in your tool belt for corrective color. Also, you have vertical lines, which are just like this across the section that way. That's going to be, again, more of a heavy veil of color. It's going to be more solid in the placement. Then you have your diagonal lines. So diagonal lines are, both types of lines are going to be soft and blendable, but there's 2 different types. There's diagonal forward and diagonal back. So diagonal back is pretty common. I would say a lot of stylists use this in this back section here, or even on the side here. So diagonal back looks like this. I'm going to do this motion coming from the front and coming all the way down to the back, and that's going to give you your diagonal placement right there. So when you're doing a diagonal back, it's going to draw the eye, whatever look you're doing, it's going to draw the eye away from the face. And then opposite with your diagonal forward. So I'm going to take my comb, I'm going to go from here down to the bottom, towards the face, towards the chin, and this diagonal forward is going to draw the eye towards the face. Okay, so it depends on what look you're trying to do. So I'm going to do a quick foil placement for you guys. So, and I'll move the camera in just a minute so you guys can really see my foil. But this is what we talk about in some of our essentials classes. So I like to take my section here, and then I like to take a subsection right off of the top of that, so that way I can control the amount of hair that's going in my foil. Then I'm going to do probably just a regular stitch for this demo. So I'm going to go up and down all the way across, take my hair, pull the other hair away. Now I'm going to grab my foil. All right, so I'm going to hold this hair back this way. The reason that I'm holding it back is so that when I do place my foil, it gets as close to the top of the foil as possible. It makes it a lot tighter. So I'm going to hold it back. I'm going to use my free thumb here to grab my foil, and then I'm going to roll my comb down to find the groove of my section, and then I'm going to lay down with lots of tension here. So as you can see, it got it really, really tight. Okay, so with my comb still in my hand, I'm gonna charge my brush. I'm gonna place my brush here and brush downwards. You see that my brush is horizontal, and I'm going horizontal all the way up to the root. Be careful not to place too much product. You don't want it to bleed out of the foil. Once I have enough product on here, you can completely let go and your foil's not going anywhere. So most people, when they put it on, they're holding the hair like way up here, and you only have a little bit of an area to paint. Just make sure you give yourself some room there. And then another hot tip that I like to use is to put your hand underneath here like a plate. Those of you that have ever used a balayage paddle or a highlighting paddle, same thing, but you're creating it with your hand. So I go in here, and the tips of my fingers are supporting all the way to the scalp. And then I'm going to paint all the way to the ends. So I'm using a flat brush stroke, and then I'm going to go in vertically and really push the product through to make sure I get proper saturation. Okay, another hot tip, we don't want to lift these ends up and spaghetti them in the foil. My students always ask me why. So I tell them it's not necessarily wrong that you're going in and coiling or spaghettiing those ends. It's that you're chancing not getting enough product on the rest of the ends. So not proper saturation. So what I like to do is, if the hair is short enough, I will use my brush to lift it and place it on top. Recharge my brush and lay the product on top. So that way I know it's completely saturated. Then when it comes to foiling, a lot of people will fold just once and go all the way up to the top. There's nothing wrong with that. I just ask that you pay attention to your product, that it's at the end of the foil. If you have product all at the end here and you're overlapping it past the root, then you're getting product all on your line up here. So you're gonna have bleed marks. So always foil half. One more time. Now the end of this is going to go all the way at the top of your section. You're going to use your finger to hold it tight. Lift it up. Tighten it with the back with your comb and the back flap there. And then you're all set. You're going to use your comb to tighten the corners. And there it is. I hope you guys learned something today. Can't wait to see you guys again. Stay tuned for new hot tips and tricks.